Nerys sat in the old storage loft, her back against the cold wooden wall. The boards were thin, and she could hear wind slip through the cracks. The room was small and dark. There were no blankets except one thin cloth that did not keep her warm. There was only one narrow window high above her head, and she could not reach it no matter how much she tried. She had lived in this loft for so many years that she had lost count. She did not know if she was 14, 15, or maybe even older. She only knew she had been here for a long time, a very long time. Her Aunt Mara had locked her in the loft when she was still young. Mara said it was for her own good, but Nerys knew it was only because Mara did not want her around. Mara had always looked at Nerys like she was a problem, like she was work, like she was a reminder of something she hated. Nerys did not understand why, but she had stopped asking questions a long time ago. She barely spoke anymore. There was no one to speak to. Every morning, Mara opened the door only long enough to push in a small piece of bread or a bowl of weak soup. Sometimes she gave water. Sometimes she forgot. Most days Nerys was thirsty. Most nights she went to sleep hungry. The loft always smelled of dust, old wood, and cold air. The floor creaked whenever she moved. There were boxes piled in the corners, filled with old clothes, broken tools, and items no one cared about anymore. Rats sometimes came at night, and Nerys would pull her legs up to keep them away. She hated the nights the most. During the day, she could at least listen to the sounds of the village outside, the distant voices of people walking, the wheels of carts, the calls of people selling food, the sounds of life. She could imagine she was out there walking too. She could imagine she was free. But at night, everything became silent. Too silent. She would lie awake and stare at the dark ceiling, wondering if anyone in the whole world even knew she existed. Sometimes she whispered to herself, "One day I will leave. One day I will be free." But each time she said it, the words felt weaker. Tonight was a cold night. Her fingers felt numb. She tucked her hands under her arms to keep them warm. She curled into a small shape, trying to protect herself from the cold. Below her, in the kitchen, she heard the voices of her Aunt Mara and Mara's husband, Bram. They were talking loudly, like they always did at night. Mara laughed. Bram laughed. They ate warm food. They sat by the fire. And Nerys sat alone, hungry and cold. Sometimes she wondered if Mara had forgotten she was a child. Sometimes she wondered if Mara saw her as a burden, something to hide, something to lock away. Sometimes she wondered if Mara simply did not care. Tonight, Nerys felt weaker than usual. Her stomach hurt from hunger. She had not eaten since the morning before, because Mara had forgotten her again. Her throat felt dry. Her lips were cracked. She pulled her knees closer to her chest and pressed her forehead against them. She tried not to cry. Crying made her head hurt, and it never solved anything. But a tear slipped down her cheek anyway. She wiped it quickly. She always tried to stay silent. She always tried not to make noise. Mara hated when she made noise. But when the pain in her chest grew too much, a small sound escaped her, a soft whimper, and that small sound, so small she thought only she could hear it, traveled through the cracks in the wood, down the walls, out into the cold night air. Far away, deep in the woods outside the village, someone heard it. Calvorn had been walking through the forest for hours. The night was cold, but cold never bothered him. The moonlight fell through the tall trees as he moved quietly, step by step. He did not make a sound. He never made a sound unless he wanted to. His black cloak brushed softly against the grass. His boots left almost no mark on the ground. His eyes, sharp, dark, and old, looked ahead without blinking much. His long life had trained him to notice even the smallest movement, the smallest scent, the smallest sound. He had lived for a very long time, long enough to see kingdoms rise and fall, long enough to be feared, long enough to become something whispered about in old stories. He did not look old, not at all, but his eyes carried the weight of years no human could imagine. Calvorn walked alone. He preferred it that way. People feared him, and they should. He was strong, fast, cold, and calm. He did not like crowds. He did not like noise. He did not like pointless talk. He only cared about silence and hunger. He kept to the shadows, only traveling at night. His cloak hid most of his face, but anyone who saw him long enough would know something was different, something not human. He was an alpha vampire, one of the strongest of his kind, one who did not need to run in packs or groups, one who did not need to hide behind others. He hunted alone. He lived alone. He moved alone. Tonight, he wanted to pass through the woods and reach the next valley before sunrise. He did not plan to stop near the village. Human villages annoyed him. Too loud, too messy, too fearful. He did not enjoy the smell of fear. It reminded him of old wars. But just as he walked past the last line of trees, he heard something. A sound so soft that even a wolf would not have noticed. But he noticed. A small cry. A weak sound. His steps slowed. He turned his head slightly to the left, listening. His sharp senses caught the direction right away. The sound came from the village, from one of the houses. This cry was not loud. It was thin, tired, faint. A sound made by someone with little strength left. Calvorn's brow lowered a little. He did not usually care about humans. Their lives were short. Their problems were constant. He did not get involved. But this sound was not like the others he had heard in his long life. It was the cry of someone who had been hurting for a long time, someone who did not have anyone, someone who felt trapped. Something tugged at him, not pity, but something close to interest, something like a pull. It was strange, and he did not like strange things. But the sound came again, even softer this time. A very small cry. He stood still for a moment. Then he changed direction. He walked toward the village. Nerys wiped her tears again. She did not want Mara to hear. She had learned the hard way that crying only made things worse. But today she felt too weak to hold everything inside. Her stomach growled loudly, and she bit her lip. She tried to breathe slowly, so she would not cough. Every breath in the cold air hurt. She pressed her face into her blanket. It smelled old, but it was better than breathing dust. She whispered to herself, "Please, someone, please hear me." She did not know why she said it. She did not think anyone was listening. She had said it many times before, and nothing changed. But she still whispered it, a soft, scared whisper. Calvorn reached the edge of the village. He moved silently between the dark houses. His eyes scanned each window, each door. Humans slept behind these walls, unaware of the creature that moved among them. He followed the sound. It grew a little clearer with each step. Then he stopped in front of a small house. It was old. The roof was crooked, and the wood was worn. Smoke drifted from the chimney. He could hear a man and woman inside, laughing, eating, and speaking loudly. But above them, he heard someone else. A faint breath, a heartbeat that sounded slow and weak, and a soft cry. Calvorn lifted his eyes to the upper part of the house. A loft. His jaw tightened slightly. He stepped closer. He placed his hand on the side of the house and pushed lightly. The wood was thin, old, easy to break. He listened again. A small voice. A girl who sounded like she had not been outside in years. His eyes darkened. Without making a sound, he moved to the back of the house. He looked up toward the loft window. He could smell dust, cold air, and hunger. A human had been held here a long time. He felt something sharp inside him. Not anger. Something else. Something he had not felt in years. He stepped back, preparing to climb, when he heard another cry. This one even weaker. That was enough. Calvorn reached for the wall, but before he climbed, he whispered one quiet word under his breath. Enough. Inside the loft, Neris sat up suddenly. She felt something strange, a shift in the air, like someone stood outside, like someone heard her. She looked toward the small window, but it was too dark to see anything. She hugged her blanket. Was it her imagination? Or was someone truly there? Her heart beat a little faster. She whispered again, "Help!" Her voice cracked. Calvorn heard it. His eyes sharpened. That was not just a cry. That was a plea. He placed his hand against the wooden wall again, and with almost no effort, he pushed. The wood cracked. The loft shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Neris gasped and scrambled back, her heart pounding hard. She stared at the wall in shock. Another push. The boards cracked more, and then Calvorn broke through. Wood splintered, dust filled the air. Cold wind rushed into the loft. Neris froze, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. And then she saw him. A tall figure. A dark cloak. Strong shoulders. A face half hidden by shadow. Eyes that looked straight at her. Eyes that did not look human. She pressed herself against the wall, shaking. Calvorn stepped inside the loft through the broken wall. He did not rush. He did not make any loud moves. He simply walked in, calm and steady. When he spoke, his voice was deep and even. "Do not be afraid." But Neris was afraid. Her voice trembled. Who are you?" Calvorn looked at her for a long moment. His gaze was sharp, but not cruel. Cold, but not empty. He took one more step toward her. "I am the one," he said quietly, "who heard you." Neris's breath caught in her chest. She looked at him, too stunned to speak. Calvorn tilted his head slightly. "You do not belong in this place." Neris shook her head slowly. I can't leave." A small pause. Then Calvorn said, in a voice that sounded like a promise, "You can now." Neris sat very still for a moment, her breath small and quick. She was not sure if the man in front of her was real. The loft had been dark for so long that her eyes felt like they could be fooled. But when he stepped closer, she felt the wood floor under his feet. "Do not be afraid," he said. His voice was low and even. "I will not hurt you." Neris swallowed. "Who are you?" she asked, voice thin. "My name is Calvorn," he said. "I heard your cry from the forest." Neris frowned. "How could you hear me? I was so quiet." Calvorn did not answer right away. He looked at the torn boards, and then back at her. "I hear things others do not," he said, "and your voice carried a long way." Neris wrapped her arms around her knees. "I did not mean to call for anyone. I only wanted someone to know I was here." "You are safe now," Calvorn said. "No one will touch you while I am here." Something in his words made a small part of her feel less afraid. "My aunt locked me here," she said. "She said I was a problem. She and her husband eat and sleep warm, while I sit in the cold. Calvorn's face moved, just a little, like a shadow of anger. "They had no right," he said. "I do not know what to do," Nerys said. "The loft was all I knew." "You do not have to go back," Calvorn said. "Stay here until the sun comes up. I will keep watch." Nerys hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Why help me? You do not know me." Calvorn's eyes were steady. "You called for help. No one should call and be left alone." Nerys felt something warm in her chest she had not felt in a long time. "Thank you," she said softly. Calvorn moved a few steps back, but did not leave. "Sit and rest," he said. "I will be near." Nerys leaned against the wall and let her eyes close for a short time. Calvorn stood just inside the broken wall, silent and watchful. For the first time in a long while, she felt she might sleep without fear. Nerys woke when a thin line of morning light slipped through the cracked boards. Her neck hurt from the angle she had slept in, but for once, she had not woken from fear or cold. She lifted her head slowly. Calvorn was still there. He stood near the opening he had broken through, silent and still, as if he had not moved all night. His eyes were fixed on the yard below, watching for anyone who might come near. "You did not sleep?" Nerys asked quietly. Calvorn shook his head. "I do not sleep as others do." Nerys pulled her knees close again. She was not sure how to speak to him. He was calm, strong, and strange in a way she could not name, but he had been kind. No one else had been kind to her for years. "Will they look for me?" she asked. "Your aunt and her husband," Calvorn replied. "They have not checked this loft in a long time, from what I see. They will not think you could leave on your own." Nerys lowered her eyes. "They never cared if I was sick or hungry. I do not think they care now." Calvorn studied her with a calm she found hard to read. "Then you do not owe them your fear." Nerys looked at him. "What am I supposed to do now? I have nowhere to go. No money. No friends." Calvorn stepped closer. "You will not stay here. Not locked. Not hidden." Nerys pressed her lips together. "But where would I go? And why would you help me? I am no one." Calvorn knelt down slowly so he was level with her. His voice stayed even. "You think you are no one, because you were treated like nothing. But that is not truth." Nerys felt her throat tighten. She tried to look away, but Calvorn's voice held her steady. "You survived," he said. "You endured what many could not. That makes you stronger than you know." Nerys blinked quickly and wiped her cheek. She had not meant to cry. Calvorn stood again. "Come. You should eat something. You are weak." Nerys nodded. "I can climb down from the loft, but the door is always locked." Calvorn looked at the old wooden ladder leading down. "You will not use the door." He stepped to the broken wall, and with one hand widened the gap by pushing aside another loose board. The wood cracked and fell outward. Nerys stared. "You are strong." Calvorn gave a short nod. "It is enough." Nerys crawled toward the opening. The drop to the ground wasn't far, but her legs trembled. Calvorn noticed. "I will lift you down," he said, "if you allow it." Nerys hesitated only a moment, then nodded. Calvorn reached up with his arms, and Nerys let herself slide from the ledge. His hands wrapped around her waist and set her on the ground with surprising care. She stepped back once he let go, her face warm with shy unease. "Thank you," she said. Calvorn stepped down next, landing softly. Nerys looked toward the house, but stayed hidden behind the loft wall. "If they see me—" "They will not," Calvorn said simply. "I hear every step within that house. They still sleep." Nerys took a slow breath. She was free. She didn't feel it yet, but she was standing on open ground for the first time in years. Calvorn looked at her. There is a stream near the forest. I will take you there. You can wash, drink, and rest. Nerys nodded. All right. Calvorn turned toward the trees. Nerys followed, her steps unsteady at first. Every few steps, she glanced back at the loft, half expecting someone to shout after her, but the yard was quiet. As they reached the edge of the forest, Calvorn slowed his step so she could keep up. Nerys felt the air change as the trees closed around them, the sound of birds, the smell of wet leaves. She had forgotten these things. Calvorn, she said softly, why were you in the forest at night? Calvorn walked beside her, his face calm but unreadable. I travel at night. It suits me. Nerys looked at him again, noticing how pale his eyes were, almost silver in the soft light. You are different, she said. Calvorn gave a small, almost sad smile. Yes, I am. Nerys wanted to ask more, but something in his tone kept her quiet. She sensed that he was telling her the truth, but not all of it. Not yet. They reached the stream. Water moved clear and cold over smooth stones. Nerys knelt and cupped her hands in the water, drinking slowly. The cold felt good. Calvorn stood a few steps back, giving her space. After a while, Nerys washed her face and arms, wiping away dust and old tears. She felt lighter. When she stood again, Calvorn watched her with quiet eyes. You look less tired, he said. I feel strange, Nerys answered, like the world is too big, like I forgot how to walk in it. That feeling will pass, Calvorn said. You are learning freedom again. Nerys looked at him. Will you stay with me? Calvorn did not hesitate. Yes. And Nerys, for the first time in years, felt safe enough to believe it. Nerys and Calvorn walked deeper into the forest, following the stream as it curved between tall trees. The morning light was soft and gentle, touching the ground in small patches. Nerys kept close to Calvorn, not because he asked her to, but because she felt safer near him than anywhere else. After a while, she spoke again. Calvorn, did you really hear me from far away? Yes, he said. How far? Calvorn looked ahead. Far enough that no ordinary man would have heard you. Nerys didn't know what to say to that. She wrapped her arms around herself. I only cried because I felt alone. I did not think anyone would come. I came, Calvorn said. Nerys felt her chest tighten in a strange way. I'm glad you did. They walked until they reached a clearing. Sunlight reached the ground through the branches, and the grass there was short and soft. Calvorn stopped. Sit here, he said. Rest. Nerys sat on the grass, letting the warmth touch her skin. Calvorn stood near the shade of a tree, not stepping fully into the sun. You do not like sunlight? She asked. I prefer the shade, he answered. Nerys watched him for a moment. He stood like a statue, straight, still, quiet. His eyes followed every movement in the forest, like he heard things she did not. Calvorn, you said you travel at night. Why? Calvorn looked at her. Night is safer for me. Nerys frowned. Why safer? Are you hiding from someone? No, he said, but the day weakens me. Nerys's eyes widened a little. Weakens you how? Calvorn paused before answering. My strength is not the same in the daylight. Nerys looked at him with worry. Are you sick? Calvorn shook his head. No. She wanted to understand, but she did not know the right questions. So she tried a simple one. Are you human? Calvorn's eyes softened, like he had been expecting this question. I am not as humans are, he said quietly. Nerys felt her heartbeat pick up. Then, What are you?" "I will tell you when the time is right," he said gently. "I do not want to frighten you." Nerys swallowed. "I am not scared of you." Calvorn looked at her with a strange expression, almost surprised. Most would be. "I'm not," she said again, softer this time. "You saved me." Calvorn stepped closer, but slowly. "I will not harm you, Nerys, no matter what you learn about me." Nerys nodded. She believed him. She didn't know why she believed him so easily, but she did. Just then, a sound rustled somewhere deeper in the forest. Calvorn's head turned sharply toward it. His whole body went still. "What is it?" Nerys whispered. Calvorn raised a hand slightly. "Stay behind me." Nerys stood quickly, her heart racing. She moved closer to him. He stepped in front of her, his posture shifting, taller, harder, almost like he was ready for something. The sound came again. Branches cracking, leaves shifting. "Is it an animal?" Nerys asked. "No," Calvorn said. His voice was low. Nerys felt fear creep up her spine, but Calvorn stood firm. The noise grew louder. Then a figure stepped through the trees. It was a man, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a rough leather vest. His eyes were wild, and he held a hunting knife in one hand. He stared at Nerys. "There you are," the man said. "Your aunt said you'd run off." Nerys felt her knees weaken. No, she wouldn't." The man smirked. "She said you were worthless to her now. Said if we found you, we could take you, sell you, use you. Didn't matter." Nerys felt her stomach twist. Calvorn stepped forward, placing himself fully between her and the man. "You will not touch her," Calvorn said. The man's smirk faded. "Who are you to tell me anything?" Calvorn's voice dropped lower. "I said, you will not touch her." The man laughed. "Move aside. She's not yours." Calvorn's eyes changed, very slightly, but Nerys saw it. A faint glow, silver but brighter. "I warn you once," Calvorn said. "Leave." The man lifted his knife. "Or what? You'll fight me?" Calvorn didn't move. The man rushed forward. He never reached Calvorn. In one smooth motion, so fast Nerys barely saw it, Calvorn grabbed the man's wrist, twisted it, and threw him to the ground like he weighed nothing. The knife flew from his hand. The man screamed. Calvorn placed one foot on the man's chest, holding him down without effort. "You should not have come here," Calvorn said quietly. The man struggled, tried to grab Calvorn's leg, but it was useless. "Let me go. Let me go," he yelled. Calvorn leaned down slightly. "You will tell her aunt this. Nerys is no longer theirs. If they come after her again, I will come for them." The man nodded frantically. Calvorn released him. The man scrambled away, tripping over roots, then ran back toward the village as fast as he could. Silence returned. Nerys stared at Calvorn, her breath shaky. "Calvorn, you move so fast." Calvorn turned to face her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but you were not like a man just now." Calvorn stepped closer, his voice calm. "Nerys, there is truth you will have to hear soon, but not before you are ready." She stared into his silver eyes, her fear slowly melting. "I trust you, even if you're not human." Calvorn's face softened. "Then you trust wisely." He held out his hand. Nerys placed hers in his without thinking, and for the first time, she felt the warmth of another person's hand, not as a threat, but as protection. Nerys held Calvorn's hand a moment longer, before pulling it gently back to her chest. Her fingers trembled, not from fear this time, but from the weight of everything that had just happened. The man, the knife, the threat, then Calvorn moving faster than anyone she had ever seen. She swallowed, trying to steady her breath. "Calvorn," she said quietly. Please tell me what you are. Calvorn looked at the sunlight on the grass. Not here, he said. We should move deeper into the forest. That man will run straight to your aunt, and she will not stay quiet. Nerys nodded, still shaken. Calvorn started walking, slow enough for her to keep up. She followed him through the clearing and into a thicker part of the woods, where the trees blocked most of the light. When they stopped, the air felt cooler and heavy with quiet. Calvorn turned toward her. You asked me what I am, he said. I will not hide the truth. Nerys took a breath. I'm ready. He held her gaze. His silver eyes did not look human at all in the dim light. I am a vampire, Nerys, he said. The words settled into the silence like stones falling into water. Nerys didn't step back. She didn't scream. She just looked at him, trying to understand. A vampire, she repeated slowly. Like in the old stories? Calvorn nodded once. Yes. Nerys's heart beat hard, but she didn't run. She watched him, waiting for whatever came next. I am not like the tales told in villages, Calvorn said. I do not hunt for pleasure. I do not harm without cause. But the night strengthens me. The day weakens me. And my senses, they are more than human. Nerys remembered how quickly he moved, how the man's knife had never even reached him. So, that is why you heard me, she said. Yes, Calvorn replied. Your cry was soft, but it carried through the night. I followed it because it did not sound like fear alone. It sounded like someone who had been forgotten. Nerys felt a pain in her chest at those words. I was. Calvorn stepped a little closer, slow and careful. I know, he said, and that is why I came. Nerys looked down at her hands. Are you dangerous? Calvorn did not lie. I can be. But you won't hurt me? No, he said firmly. Never you. Nerys nodded again, trying to calm the trembling inside her. It wasn't fear of Calvorn. It was everything else. Her aunt. That man. The thought of being sold, taken, used. Calvorn watched her face. You are thinking of what he said. Nerys's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. He said, my aunt told them they could take me. That she didn't care. Calvorn's jaw tightened. Then she will not have the chance to do it again. Nerys wiped her cheek. What am I supposed to do now? I can't go back. They'll hurt me. Or worse. Calvorn looked around the forest, as if searching for a place that would comfort her. There is an old stone shelter deeper in the woods. Hidden. Safe. Few know it exists. Nerys looked up at him. Will you stay there with me? Calvorn nodded. Yes. Why? She whispered. Calvorn's voice softened. Because you cried in the dark. Because no one should suffer alone. And because I will not leave you. Nerys felt something warm she had never known. Trust. Safety. Maybe even hope. Show me the shelter, she said. Calvorn extended his hand. Come. Nerys hesitated only a second before placing her hand in his again. His grip was firm but gentle, steady in a way nothing in her life had ever been. They walked through the forest until the trees grew taller and the ground dipped low. At last, they reached a clearing with an old stone structure half covered by moss and vines. It looked abandoned and forgotten, but strong, like it had stood through storms and time. This is it, Calvorn said. We will stay here until it is safe. Nerys stepped inside. The air was cool. Stone walls, an old bench, a small window high near the roof. No dust. No rot. It's clean, she said softly. I keep it that way, Calvorn replied. Nerys turned to him. You come here a lot? When I need silence, he said. Or when I do not wish to be found. Nerys sat on the stone bench. For the first time in her life, the silence didn't feel like a punishment. Calvorn stood by the doorway, watching the trees, always alert. After a moment, Nerys spoke again. "Calvorn, that man who came for me, will he return?" "Yes," Calvorn said. "Not alone. Your aunt will not let this pass quietly." Nerys's hands tightened in her lap. "What will we do if they come?" Calvorn looked at her with calm certainty. "They will not reach you," he said. "Not while I live." Nerys believed him. Completely. She leaned back against the stone wall, letting the safety of the moment settle over her. Calvorn stayed at the doorway, silent and steady, like a shield carved from shadow. And for the first time in her life, Nerys wasn't trapped. She was protected. She was seen. She was free. Nerys rested against the cool stone wall, her breathing finally steady. Calvorn stood at the doorway, silent as a shadow, watching the trees with the focus of someone who heard things far beyond what she could. After some time, Nerys spoke softly. "Calvorn, do you think they will come soon?" "Yes," he said, "before nightfall." Nerys felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "Why so soon?" "Because your aunt fears trouble," Calvorn said. "If word spreads that she kept you locked away, she will try to silence it quickly." Nerys looked down. "She always cared more about what others thought than about me." Calvorn turned his head slightly. "I know." Nerys glanced up at him. "How do you know so much about people? About their hearts?" Calvorn stepped inside, letting the light behind him fall across the stone floor. "I have lived a long time," he said. "I have seen what cruelty does, and I have seen how people hide it." Nerys pulled her knees close. "Then you also know I am not strong." Calvorn knelt in front of her, meeting her eyes. "You survived years, locked in a dark loft. You lived through things that would have broken many. That is strength." Nerys looked away, tears forming again. It never felt like strength. Calvorn's voice softened. "Strength does not feel like strength while you are suffering. It only shows after." Nerys wiped her own tears before they fell. I want to stop shaking. I want to stop being afraid." "You will," Calvorn said. "You are already changing." Nerys wasn't sure if she believed that yet, but she wanted to. A noise outside the stone shelter broke the quiet, very faint, like a twig snapping far away. Calvorn stood instantly, his whole body going still. "What is it?" Nerys asked, her breath catching. Calvorn raised one hand, signaling her to stay silent. Another sound, then another. Several footsteps. Far, but moving closer. "They are in the forest," Calvorn said. His voice was calm, but sharper now. 3 men, maybe 4. Nerys felt her heart drop. "From the village?" "Yes," Calvorn said. "Sent by your aunt." Nerys pressed her hand to her mouth. "Why? Why can't they leave me alone?" Calvorn turned to her. "Because people like them cannot stand losing control. They thought you were theirs to use. Now they fear losing that power." Nerys's hands trembled. "What will they do if they find me?" Calvorn stepped closer and gently touched her shoulder. "They will not find you." Nerys swallowed. "What will you do?" Calvorn looked toward the doorway again. "What I must." She stared at him. "Calvorn, I don't want you to get hurt." A faint, sad smile touched his lips. "Nerys, they cannot hurt me." Nerys didn't fully understand, but something inside her believed it. Calvorn's strength, his speed, the way he held himself, it all pointed to a power she couldn't see, but felt. The footsteps came closer, crunching through leaves. Nerys whispered, "What should I do?" "Stay here," Calvorn said. "Stay behind the wall. Do not come out unless I call for you." Nerys nodded quickly. Calvern stepped to the entrance and disappeared from her view, moving so quietly he didn't disturb the air. Nerys crawled to the far corner of the shelter, heart pounding so hard she felt it in her throat. She hugged herself tight, trying not to make a sound. Outside, male voices echoed faintly through the trees. I saw tracks this way. She can't be far. The aunt said she wasn't worth much, but if we bring her back, she'll still pay. Nerys shut her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She hugged her knees, breath shaking. Then she heard Calvorn's voice outside, calm and low. You should turn back. The men froze. Who's there? A warning, Calvorn said. Leave the forest. Nerys peeked toward the doorway, but she couldn't see anything from where she hid. She only heard the voices. Step aside, one of the men snapped. We're taking the girl. You will not, Calvorn said. There was a heavy silence, then the sound of someone drawing a blade. Move, the man said, or we'll... A sharp thud cut his words short. Then a cry. Branches breaking. Another cry. Nerys covered her ears, shaking harder. The noise lasted only seconds, too fast for her mind to follow. Then silence. Complete silence. Nerys waited, breath held, her nails digging into her own arms. She didn't move until she heard Calvorn's voice again. Nerys, it is safe. She stood slowly, her legs shaking, and walked toward the doorway. Calvorn stood there, untouched, steady and calm. The men were gone. She didn't ask how. She didn't want to see. Are you hurt? He asked. Nerys shook her head. No. Are you? No. She stepped closer. What happened to them? They are alive, Calvorn said. But they will not come after you again. Nerys stared at him, breath trembling. Calvorn, you protected me. I told you I would. Nerys's eyes filled once more, but this time it wasn't from fear. She stepped forward and hugged him, something she had never done to anyone. Calvorn froze for a moment, unused to the gesture. Then slowly, gently, he placed a hand on her back. You are safe now, he said. No one will take you. No one will hurt you. Nerys held him tighter, her voice small and cracked. Thank you. Calvorn looked down at the top of her head, his expression softening in a way she didn't see. You do not need to thank me, he said. I heard your cry, and I chose you. Nerys woke with a start. For a moment she did not know where she was. The stone shelter was dim, lit by a thin shaft of morning light through the small window. Her head rested on a rough cloth, and a warm blanket covered her. It took a second for the memory to return. The loft, the long cold, the man in the woods who had broken the wall. Her heart thumped fast. She sat up slowly. Her body ached, but the warmth of the blanket helped her breathe more easily than she had in many nights. Before she could think more, Calvorn stepped into the shelter. His dark cloak moved without sound. He watched her with calm eyes, not like a stranger, but like someone who had been keeping watch. You are awake, he said quietly. Nerys nodded. Did you bring me here? Yes, Calvorn said. You were too weak to stay in the open. I could not leave you. She looked down, embarrassed. I did not mean to trouble you. You did not trouble me, he said. You needed help. Calvorn set a small bowl of warm broth on the bench beside her. The smell reached her and made her stomach tighten. You should eat, he said. You need strength. Nerys lifted the bowl with both hands and took a small sip. The liquid was warm and plain, but it felt like comfort. She drank more, slowly, until the bowl was lighter. Thank you, she whispered. Calvorn sat nearby, not too close, but not far either. He watched the trees outside the small window. They will not find you here, he said. This place is hidden. Will they come looking for me? Nerys asked. Calvern did not look at her right away. They may send men. Your aunt will not let this go quietly. But I will keep watch. No one will take you back. Nerys felt a small relief wash over her. Why do you help me? You do not owe me anything. Calvern met her eyes. His look was steady. You cried in the dark. I could not ignore that. I do not leave people to suffer when I can stop it. Nerys put the bowl down and wiped her hands on her skirt. You moved so fast when that man came. How... Calvern's face did not show much, but a small shadow of memory crossed his eyes. I have lived long, he said. I know how to move. I can protect you. Nerys wanted to ask more, but the thought of the men who had come before made her chest tighten. Instead, she asked, What will I do next? I have nowhere to go. Calvern stood and walked to the doorway. He looked back at her. First, you rest and eat. Then we plan. We will not rush. You must learn to walk without fear. Nerys nodded. For the first time in a long while, she felt like someone had a plan that included her. She lay back on the bench and closed her eyes. The shelter was quiet, but in that quiet, she felt safe. Calvern kept his watch at the doorway, his silhouette steady against the trees. The day passed slow and easy. Calvern brought more food when he thought she needed it. He showed her how to boil water and keep a small fire safe. He taught her to listen to the forest, how the wind would change sound when people walked, how birds would fall silent when danger came. Nerys learned fast. She wanted to learn. Each small skill felt like a step away from the cold loft and closer to a life that might belong to her. When the sun began to lower, Calvern went outside and stood for a long while, looking toward the village. Nerys watched his form through the small window. He came back inside and sat beside her. They will not try tonight, he said, but your aunt may send others in the days to come. Nerys swallowed. Then I should be ready. You will be, Calvern said, and I will be with you. For the first time since she remembered, Nerys let herself breathe without holding it all in. She leaned her head against the stone wall and felt the steady beat of her heart. Calvern kept watch that night as well. He did not sleep, but he seemed calm. Nerys closed her eyes and slept in short stretches, waking sometimes to the sound of his soft steps and the wind in the trees. Each time she woke and saw him nearby, she felt the small comfort grow. When morning came again, Nerys felt a little stronger. She sat up and stretched stiff limbs. Calvern gave her a small, plain smile. Today, we will go to the stream and find a way to make you clean clothes, he said. You cannot keep the ones you wore for years. Nerys tried to laugh, but it came out small. I do not even know how to mend cloth. Calvern reached into a leather bag and took out a small needle, thread, and a few pieces of cloth. You will learn. She accepted the needle with hands that shook, but this time they shook from hope, not only fear. They left the shelter and walked to the stream. The air smelled of wet earth and green things. Nerys felt light in a way she had not known. She practiced sewing and learned how to stitch a loose hem. Calvern watched and showed her small things, how to tie a knot, how to fold cloth tight to dry faster. When the cloth was clean and mended, Calvern offered her a simple dress he had kept wrapped in oilcloth. This will do for now, he said. Nerys touched the fabric, surprised at the softness. You kept this for me? Calvern did not answer with words. He only looked at her. and she could read care in his calm face. As the sun dipped low, they returned to the shelter. Neris felt the weight of small victories. Clean clothes, a warm meal, a plan. She sat by the small window and watched Calvorn moving outside, tending a small fire, checking the path for signs. She felt neither empty nor alone. That night, as she lay down, Neris thought of the loft, of the silence, of the long years. She thought of her aunt and Bram and the men who had come for her. She thought of Calvorn. She thought of how one small sound, one soft cry, had reached someone who listened, and she let herself sleep without fear for a time. The next morning, Neris woke to the smell of smoke and the soft sound of Calvorn moving outside. She sat up, feeling more rested than she had in years. When she stepped out of the shelter, she found Calvorn crouched near a small fire, sharpening a short blade with slow, steady strokes. He glanced up. "You slept well?" "Yes," Neris said. "It feels strange. Good, but strange." "You will get used to it," he replied. "Safety always feels strange at first." She sat across from him, warming her hands by the fire. The air was cool but gentle. Birds moved in the trees above them. For a moment, the world seemed simple. Then Calvorn paused mid-stroke. His head lifted slightly, his eyes turning toward the deeper side of the forest. Neris felt her breath stop. "What is it?" "Footsteps," Calvorn said quietly. "Far, but moving this way." Her heart began to pound. Who would come here? Calvorn stood, blade in hand. Men who do not belong in this part of the woods. Men who look for what they lost. Neris felt cold fear rise. My aunt sent them. "It seems so," Calvorn said. He reached for a dark cloak and handed it to her. "Wear this. Stay close to me. Do not speak unless I tell you." Neris nodded and wrapped herself in the cloak. The fabric was heavy but warm. Calvorn touched her shoulder gently. "You are not going back," he said, "no matter who comes." Neris swallowed. "What will you do?" "What I must," he said. They moved deeper into the trees, away from the path. Calvorn walked ahead, silent as a shadow. Neris followed, stepping where he stepped, trying not to make a sound. Her heart beat so loud she was sure the whole forest could hear it. They reached a thick cluster of old trees. Calvorn stopped and motioned for her to stand behind a wide trunk. "Stay here," he whispered. "I will return." "No," Neris whispered back. "Please, don't leave me." He turned to her, his dark eyes steady. "I will not leave you. I will only go far enough to see who they are and what they want." Neris nodded, though fear tightened her chest. Calvorn touched her hand, only for a second, light as a breath, then moved away, disappearing between the trees. Neris pressed her back against the trunk, clutching the cloak tight. The forest seemed too quiet. Every small sound made her jump. After what felt like a long time, she heard voices, low, angry voices. The girl must be close. Bram said she cannot have gone far. Find her before night. The aunt wants her back. And if the man is with her, leave him to me. Neris covered her mouth with her hand, shaking. They were close. Too close. A branch snapped behind her. She turned fast, heart racing. Calvorn stood there, silent as ever. "They are 3 men," he said, "armed but careless." Neris could barely breathe. "What will we do?" "They will find me." Calvorn looked at her with a calm that settled her fear. "No, they will not." He stepped beside her, placing himself between her and the path. "Stay behind me. Do not run." Neris shook her head. "They will hurt you." Calvorn's voice was soft. "They cannot." Before she could ask what he meant, the men broke through the brush. The first one stopped when he saw Calvorn. "You, move aside. We are here for the girl." Calvorn did not move. The second man lifted his spear. "Move, or you will regret it." Calvorn's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something older, something colder. "No," he said. "You will." Nerys felt the air shift, heavy, tense, almost like the forest itself held its breath. The man with the spear lunged. He never touched Calvorn. In one smooth motion, Calvorn stepped forward, caught the spear shaft, and broke it across his knee. The man fell back with a cry, stumbling in the leaves. The second man swung a club. Calvorn moved again. Fast, faster than any man Nerys had ever seen. He caught the man's wrist, twisted it, and the club dropped. The third man froze, eyes wide. "What are you?" Calvorn's voice was quiet. "Someone you should not have followed." The man turned to run. Calvorn didn't chase him. He didn't need to. He spoke one low command. "Stop." The man stopped as if his legs no longer belonged to him. Nerys stared. Her breath trembled. Calvorn stepped forward, calm and steady. "You will leave these woods. You will not return. Tell her she has lost." The men didn't argue. They didn't look back. They fled through the trees as fast as they could. When the forest was quiet again, Calvorn turned to Nerys. She looked at him differently now, still with trust, but also with a new understanding. "You are not like other men," she whispered. Calvorn gave a small nod. "No, I am not. But you protect me," she said softly. "Yes," he answered, "and I will continue to." Nerys stepped closer to him, her fear slowly easing. What happens now? Calvorn looked toward the deeper woods. His voice was calm but firm. "Now we move. They will speak of what they saw, and more will come." Nerys tightened the cloak around herself. "I will go wherever you lead me." Calvorn held her gaze for a moment. "Then stay close. This is only the beginning." They left the small shelter before the sun rose high, moving deeper into the thick forest. Nerys stayed close to Calvorn, her steps light, her breath steady. She was no longer the quiet girl who hid in a loft. She was someone learning how to walk without fear. Calvorn led her along a narrow path covered with moss and roots. The trees grew taller and older the farther they went. After some time, the forest opened into a wide clearing. In the center stood broken stone walls, covered with green vines. An old tower rose behind them, cracked but still strong. Nerys stopped. "What is this place?" Calvorn looked at the ruins for a long moment. "A home," he said. "Long ago, before the world changed." She followed him inside. The air was still, filled with the soft sound of wind whispering through empty windows. A stone hearth stood at one side, unused for many years. "You lived here?" she asked. "Yes." Calvorn brushed dust from a fallen beam. His voice was steady, but quiet. "There was a time when this place was full of life, but that time passed." Nerys stepped closer. "Will it be safe?" "For now," he said. "No one from the village knows this place. It will give us time." As they walked deeper into the ruins, Nerys noticed something unusual. The shadows seemed to bend around Calvorn, as if they knew him. His steps were silent, even on broken stone. She finally asked, "Calvorn, what are you?" He did not answer right away. He looked out through a tall, cracked window where sunlight spilled in lines across the floor. "I am older than you think," he said softly. "Older than your village, older than the woods around us." Nerys felt a cold shiver run down her back. "Are you human?" Calvorn turned to her. His eyes were calm, clear, and steady. I was once, but that time ended long ago. Nerys swallowed, trying to understand. What are you now? He stepped closer, only a few feet away. Something that listens to the night. Something that does not fear the dark. Something that heard your cry and answered. Her breath caught. You saved me because you heard me. Yes. His voice was quiet, even from far away. Your cry was not loud, but it carried pain, and I could not ignore it. Instead of fear, Nerys felt something warm rise inside her. You protected me. You could have left me there, but you didn't. Calvorn looked at her with a gentle, steady expression. I did not save you because I had to. I saved you because I chose to. Nerys stepped closer, her hand brushing the edge of his cloak. Then I choose to stay with you. Calvorn watched her for a long moment. The shadows around him seemed to soften. You understand what that means? He asked. Nerys nodded. I do. I cannot go back. Even if the village forgets me, my aunt never will. And I do not want to live in fear anymore. Calvorn slowly reached out and took her hand, lightly, careful not to scare her. Then, you will stay, and I will teach you how to survive, how to walk these woods without fear, how to protect yourself. Nerys felt her heart steady. And what about you? Calvorn gave a faint smile, the first she had ever seen. I will stay by your side. I have lived many years in silence. Maybe it is time for something different. Nerys looked around the ruins. The broken walls no longer felt lonely. They felt like the beginning of something new. What will we do now? She asked. Calvorn lifted his head and listened to the wind. We rebuild. We learn. We live as we choose. Nerys nodded, feeling something strong rise inside her. Hope. Clear and simple. Calvorn let go of her hand only to pick up a fallen branch and place it near the hearth. Come, he said gently. Help me. We will make this place warm again. Nerys moved to his side and began to gather wood. The old ruins slowly came to life, first with small steps, small sounds, small breaths shared in the quiet. When the first fire burned in the hearth, lighting the broken stone with soft gold, Nerys stood beside Calvorn. She watched the flame dance and felt the fear of her old life fade. Calvorn looked down at her. You are safe now. For as long as you stay, she said. Calvorn nodded once. I will stay. And in the soft glow of the fire, surrounded by ancient stone and quiet woods, Nerys knew her life had finally changed, not by chance, but by choice. The girl who cried in the dark now walked beside the one who heard her, together, alive and unafraid.